Welcome to Dragonian, your podcast for news and updates in Hong Kong and Taiwan. I'm your host, William.
Hi everyone, this is William, your host for the Dragonian podcast. Welcome to episode 24 of the Dragonian podcast. This is your host. This week's episode will be about how we are getting back to basics to observe events that happen within Hong Kong and Taiwan as we navigate new waters by the election within Taiwan and all the changes that happened in Hong Kong. If you would like to learn more about what's happening in these two regions, please subscribe to our podcast. Whether you are listening from your favorite podcast app or directly from YouTube or YouTube Music. Thanks for support. So now, first, we will discuss news that are exclusively about Hong Kong. The first news is about the Hang Seng Index. This Hang Seng Index, the tracker fund for the performance of the Hong Kong's stock market, dropped consecutively for nearly 2 weeks after 2024 started. This consecutive drop of the value of the Hong Kong stock market and the Hang Seng Index at all basically came as the economy had somewhat turned into a standstill as local consumption rates getting down, with people and locals voting by their feet to shop in Shenzhen while at the same time fleeing outside of the city. This also came as the background of the lackluster performance of the Chinese economy as seen in last year. Even after the so-called opening up of China, there are still the performance of the Chinese economy had actually been lackluster since then, and as a result, the lackluster performance with basically a few large companies declared bankrupt at the same time, actually created immense pressure to the Hong Kong stock market. We are also seeing nearly all the gains that happened but just because of the possibility of opening up. Basically, since 2022, late 2022, the possibility and the gradual opening up, which triggered the increase in the value of the stock market and increase in the index. Basically, all of these increases had all but wiped out. So this is about the first event that happened in Hong Kong. The second one is also about the economy within the city, as the Hong Kong's government now has its plans to introduce new tax items to counter the ever-increasing deficit as observed in the city. Because of the pandemic and all the measures to counter the pandemic, and at the same time national security and all other events happening at the same time, the Hong Kong government had recorded deficits for over 3 years by now already. As we are getting to the 4th year of a projected deficit, the government had actually now been finding plans and basically starting to panic whether the city will basically fall into a trap, as the Hong Kong's economy, unlike a lot of countries otherwise, largely rely on financial services, and at the same time is largely dependent on whether the government could or have enough money to secure its rainy day funds, or to secure its needs in rainy days. Furthermore, the capital outflow largely triggered by political reasons, for example, the national security law and corresponding plans by foreign governments to attract Hong Kong people to leave, and an unsuccessful increase in the tax for stamp duty, which was originally imposed in 2021, but all of the increase were scrapped 2 years afterwards because of the lackluster performance. Basically, created immense pressure for the Hong Kong government to hold new plans or to discuss new plans for finding new revenue streams, which included, for example, in this case, introducing a capital gains tax, as the city is starting to getting deep into the pocket. Furthermore, the government had been dubbed as the so-called service fees or parking fees or fines or fine or fine economy. In this case, the fine itself means fines that are imposed for not obeying laws, as we are seeing as basically these fines, traffic fines issued by the traffic department and the Hong Kong's police force, had basically swallowed by over 50% since 2020. Furthermore, there are also plans to discuss other fees, for example, university fees, as observed by the government and observed by a lot of individuals. There are also plans to impose a market fee on services that are provided by the government, which included, for example, stadiums, rental of stadiums, public services, which ranges from getting a driving license to registering the company. In fact, this discussion of widening the tax base had actually been happening, or actually been in the case since the early 2015s. As we are seeing at that time, even at the good old times in Hong Kong, where we are seeing profits year by year, the governments did not have any idea to tackle a rainy day situation, nor it will observe any possibility of heading into basically heading into years of financial deficit as a result. So they're now actually getting back to basics for whether they should do things or they should change their ability or the change for how they are trying to do, or trying to increase the tax base, or trying to rescue the Hong Kong government's financial situation out from a deficit. And the third piece of news is about education. It's a bit back to basics, but it's also a bit a worrying trend and a worrying development. The vice president of the Chinese University, vice chancellor, not president, the vice chancellor of the Chinese University of Hong Kong, Rocky Tuan, resigned from his position actively while effective since the start of next year, as one of his deputies were removed by the university board, citing that person's opposition to the board reforms that remove voices from within the university. So a bit of background here. The Hong Kong government, not the Hong Kong government, but some legislators, legislative council members that are also board members in the Chinese University of Hong Kong, applied or used a private bill to basically restrict and reform the Chinese University's board so as to remove representation from alumni, students, and even other representatives. As a result, the alumni basically host a signing or host an open letter opposing this whole change, while at the same time, the vice chancellor's deputies, one of the vice chancellor's deputies, whom was fired last year, were also found having signed that document. As a result, basically it created a lot of challenges and it created concerns on autonomy for university matters. So now the discussion, back to the basics, is that if we are back to the discussion of academic freedom, or whether that freedom of expression is under threat, or whether that such freedom should be limited through a fully democratic means, or if that is even legal at all, considering the sacking of the vice chancellor's deputies. So these are news and events that topped Hong Kong stories. I have basically this week I have basically omitted court stories, as basically the court stories are just those court stories. It is as depressing as normal, so I don't want to cover them weeks by week, saying how depressing this whole thing is. So next up, it is about news that are exclusively about Taiwan. So the first piece of news is basically international headlines. It's about Taiwan's election for its legislative yuan and its presidency. So voting day was on the 13th of January, at a Saturday, and basically as a result, the Chinese Kuomintang came out as the largest party in parliament, leading the Democratic Progressive Party by 1 seat. Taiwan's People's Party earned 8 seats in this election, as the party absorbed support from other parties, which included the New Power Party as one of the major reasons for how they secured that seat by placing Casey Huang in the party seat, boosted turnout rates. Furthermore, it also saw an end of an era where Song Chu-yu would basically run for election, as he came out as he basically had been a candidate from 2000, 2004, 2008, 2016, and 2020. Or at least he came in at least 4 of these presidential election. So as a result, basically as a result of all of these discussions, now the problem now gets back to why, or gets back into all the election rigging claims, and even as seen by the victorious party, in this case for the presidency, the Democratic Progressive Party, there are calls to basically to discuss all the shortcomings in this election cycle. They just immediately after the votes were counted, so that is actually quite unprecedented. I would consider that. And so back to the results. So for the presidential race, Ko Wen-je, the leader of the Taiwan People's Party, lost. William Lai for the Democratic Progressive Party won, and Hou Yu-yi, as a result, lost at the same time. Furthermore, William Lai also became the first person in Taiwan's history to basically enable or to lead the incumbent party to rule the island for more than 8 years after democratization of the island in 1996. As seen in the result, so there are a lot of discussions in Taiwan's election. The first discussion is about irregularities as observed by a lot of peoples, and basically claimed as they are rigging the vote. So Taiwan's voting system is a bit backward because of a lot of election rigging claims and even incidents that led to problems. As a result, people in Taiwan basically are very in very high concern, or in basically they had a high concern on issues related to vote irregularity. So in this case, or in this year, the election, Ko Wen-je's supporters issued a lot of statements saying that the election was heavily rigged against them, which cited a lot of irregularities, which were actually amended, as we are seeing that votes were counted by hand. So there should be issues, or there should be wrong votes, or there should be errors. However, a lot of these recorded videos that were shared amongst Reels, TikToks, and even other short form media, or short term media, actually basically some of the incumbents and even some of the Chinese Kuomintang Party supporters claim that they are rigging the whole system, or that they have effectively predicted that Cole's party would say that this whole election was rigged against the Taiwan People's Party. So yes, so in public, Ho Youyi congratulated William Lai for winning the election, while Cole said that he will just come out to lead in the 2028 election. And jokingly speaking, they basically say this creates a problem where elections where if you're having a party list, you're having a party vote, then basically the next presidential election runner or the candidate should not be decided by the incumbent leader of the party. So this is the first piece of event that happened in Taiwan, quite large. William Lai won, Democratic Progressive Party won. The Chinese Kuomintang won in the somewhat won, not effectively won in the legislative yuan. Well, basically no one won actually, as no one actually came out purely victorious, even for Cole. So next up is about the satellites and missiles and the early warning system. It is actually a part of the Taiwan's election, not a very large part, but it can be considered at least a small part of the election itself. So the thing that happened is actually completely outside of Taiwan's election at all. As China partnered with Europe, launched a satellite probe named Einstein for hunting X-ray bursts and collecting astronomical data after multiple delays for its launch. So this satellite was launched last week, and it deviated from its original launch path, basically 10 to 15 minutes into the launch. And as a result, originally it was launched or it would pass Taiwan's air defense identification zone while not passing the island at all. With all the detours and with all the deviance in the launch trajectory, the civil defense decided to issue a warning against falling objects from satellites, as basically when it reached one stage, or when it reached stage 1, 2, and 3, these rockets would basically fall directly from above. Although it's unlikely that these will hit civilian infrastructures or roads, there have been events in China where people were killed because of this. So out of caution, Taiwan Civil Defense Force used a warning system or issued warnings to warn citizens from the whole thing, that they should exercise caution for the possibility of debris coming from the satellites or from the rockets. In here, it's definitely not a missile. However, the warning was amended from a missile alert, as shown in a lot of discussions and as shown in in all the press conferences issued by the MINDEF's spokesperson. However, it did not correctly say that it is a satellite debris or a rocket debris, which actually initiated some sort of panic within the people within the island, as people could not and are not able to identify or whether this is a real attack from China or it's a debris or it were basically debris from Taiwan or from a civilian rocket launch. Although it is basically completely unmilitary, completely unrelated to military, it created panic within citizens in Taiwan, and basically the whole island bursted into discussions for whether, first of all, whether this should be issued. Secondly, whether for the reason for why it became a missile alert. The National Defense Ministry apologized for the error and decided to go back to basics to find out the reasons, to find out the problems for whether it started or why it happened, why the whole thing was erratic at all. And it actually became a wrong story for all the wrong reasons for Taiwan, as this alert actually got into headlines, into multiple foreign media and organizations, as coincidentally a lot of foreign press or foreign media are in Taiwan covering for the election, while having this whole missile scare attack. It actually created some panic. So this is about news that is all about Taiwan. It's the top news. It's of course not all the news, but it's the top news. And the last of all is a bit about Taiwan and a bit about Hong Kong. So this is about how Hong Kong's media are naming Taiwan's new president and election. Hong Kong's self-censorship, which came after the imposition of the national security law, came at new heights, as now even local media refrains from using the term President of the Republic of China, or in Cantonese, 中華民國總統, or President of Taiwan, a more abbreviated but politically incorrect term, 台灣總統, or 台灣地區領導人, which means that the leader of the Taiwan region, which is a term dubbed by the Chinese to basically state their claim over Taiwan. Local media have been observed for removing some of the local media, which include the TVB, the Television Broadcast Limited, which owns Jade and other local free media channel, and it was considered as one of the most watched channels of TVs in Hong Kong, removed the title at all. So there were no titles. It only wrote that William Lai, and he wrote that winner of the election. So no mentioning of what the election is for, who won, why he won, or even how he won the election. So this is similar to how China deals with the elections held in Taiwan since 2016, in Matthew at the same time, by issuing strong word statements and by using derogatory terms to derogate the position of the President of the Republic of China. This, interestingly speaking, actually came as a side effect for the abolishment of the region, the state of Taiwan. In this state, it means Taiwan Shang. It means a region that does not comprise of the whole region or the whole idea of Taiwan now, as it does not cover Kinmen or some of its outlying islands that are very near China. So getting back to basics, respect is to not only respect what they have done, but also the title, to be impartial of what they're doing, and basically not only how Chinese responded, but the muted response from Hong Kong's local media actually seems to have no respect on this democratically elected leader at all. So getting back to basics, I hope that this week's episode will bring you some more insights from within the island and serve as some discussions, which probably may need extensive discussions for the whole thing. So we hope you find this episode informative, and if you do, please subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss a single episode. And if you have any feedback, please let us know in the comments or drop us an email at william@draconianpod.com. So, thanks again for listening to this episode. We will be back next week with more news from Hong Kong and Taiwan. Be safe, prosperous, happy and peaceful week ahead. Goodbye.